Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We start with an invocation, which we observe with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton. Morales.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Stead.
Here.
Willetts. 4 present, 2 absent.
And now we have minutes for approval.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes for the budget workshop and regular meetings on May 20th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk?
Corliss.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Nash.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. So we've got 2 items under special business. And first is a Wear Orange Gun Violence Awareness Day proclamation. So glad to have all of you with us today. And we are going to take the opportunity. I'm going to read this, and then the council might have a couple words to say, and then we'd love to take a picture with the group, if that's all right. Right. And thank you for all being here and for the request that we do this. Whereas every day, 125 people in the United States are killed by gun violence, and more than 260 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 19,000 gun homicides every year. And people in the U.S. are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Idaho has 316 gun deaths every year with a rate of 16.7 deaths per 100,000 people, a crisis that costs the state $3.7 billion each year, of which $30.5 million is paid by taxpayers. And whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities with more than half of all gun homicides in the nation, occurring in 42 cities across the nation, including Boise, and cities across the nation, including Boise, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions and protecting public safety in the communities they serve. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from those who are a danger to themselves or others. And whereas mayors, council members, and law enforcement officers, in partnership with local violence intervention groups and resources, know their communities best and are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, so are the best positioned to understand how to keep our citizens and cities safe. And whereas in July 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And on June 6, 2025, to recognize the 28th birthday of Hadia, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas by wearing orange on June 6, 2025, people across the United States will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our families and communities safe. I, Lauren McLean, do hereby proclaim June 6, 2025 as Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Boise. That I would love to present this to each. If you have a representative, we can do it that way. Or if you're all going to come up for a picture, I'd be happy to present it to the group. And I think that council would like to be involved too. But before, anybody want to say anything before? No, not all, but I think some council members have something to say, but then I'll hand it over.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I just want to thank you all so much for being here and for bringing this cause to us to recognize today. I think there's probably nobody that hasn't experienced,
first or secondhand some type of gun violence or senseless death by guns. And I appreciate the opportunity for us to recognize that. And thank you so much for your efforts in our community and the really leading across the country that's building to support this cause. Thank you so much for being here.
Madam Mayor, I just want to echo Councilmember Stead's comments as well as the mayor's proclamation. I was a little troubled by commentary I saw online about this proclamation and those who would want to detract from the cause that you stand for and that we stand in solidarity with you on. I've shared the story here before, but my wife wears my grandmother's wedding ring, and that came from the man I knew as my grandfather. He was not my biological grandfather because my biological grandfather had died by gun violence, as well as the man I knew as my grandfather. And we have a right. We have a right to honor the memory of those individuals and also change our society in a way that we can prevent that in the future. And I've never seen that in conflict with any other constitutionally held rights. And please don't let those folks online that I saw detract you from your cause, and keep it up. Because even though we may not have a lot of statutory authority over this, it's something that we see and feel, and we try to do our best with the authority that we do have here to recognize this cause. So thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for being here.
All right, we'll come down and join you now if that's all right. Take a picture. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna take a bunch. 3, 2. All right, and now we have a request for reconsideration. Josh is with us, and Josh will present, and then what happens with reconsiderations is in order for there to be reconsideration, there has to be a motion. If there's not a motion, then that is effectively saying that the council won't reconsider.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. As outlined in your hearing packet, Lane and Judy Osborne, who were the appellants on DRH 24-00348, have submitted a request for reconsideration of council's decision to deny their appeal. As summarized in that memo in your packet, the request for reconsideration does not contain any new information and does not demonstrate that the decision was in violation of local, state, or federal law. As you may recall, at the meeting of April 29th, 2025, council adopted a reason statement for the decision, which staff believes adequately addresses the disputed facts and applicable criteria that were used to make that decision. Therefore, the recommendation is that City Council does not grant the request for reconsideration. If the request is granted, a new public hearing will be scheduled. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Any questions? No motion? All right, for lack of a motion, the request for reconsideration will not be taken up. And now we will move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any discussion?
Just want to recognize resolution 24525. I think it's item number 1. It's the lease agreement for the Whitney Pool to begin construction.
Thanks for calling that out. It's really exciting.
I just want to call it out too, because Colin jumped in before me, but we are really excited about this and see the lease agreement and the drawings that are in there and how that's going to be laid out. It feels like another big leap forward of this coming to fruition.
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to jump in as well. Just pull pun, but I do want to just thank everyone that's working so hard on this. I know the hope is that this will open next summer, and that's a super advanced timeline thanks to a lot of really good work on staff and just all of us send them good vibes that everything works out great. Thanks.
All right, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Excuse me. We'll move into ordinances. We've got one on first.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that the ordinance on first reading be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 19-25. An ordinance repealing Boise City Code Title III, Chapter 6, entitled Childcare Facilities, amending Title III, Chapter 1, Article A, entitled Business Licenses Generally, to strike references to childcare worker and childcare facility from sections 3 and 4, repealing Title V, Chapter 12, Section 52, entitled Add Chapter 40, Childcare Facilities, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And now one on third reading.
Madam Mayor, I move that further reading of ordinance 18-25 be dispensed with and the record reflect that they have been read for the third time in full.
Second.
Motion and second, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Nash.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD 18-25. An ordinance describing the exterior boundaries and removing certain properties related to the use ditch lateral from the Boise Municipal Irrigation System, directing the Boise City Clerk to record a certified copy of this ordinance in the Office of the Ada County Recorder and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I
Yeah.
move that ORD 18-25 be approved.
We have a
Second the
motion.
motion.
We have a motion and a second, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And now we'll move into new business. We've got a subdivision. Hey, Matthew Dennis is here for the city. Is the applicant here in person? Wonderful. Are you Joseph Dodson or Andrew Wheeler? Wonderful. We don't expect the neighborhood association to be here. Is anybody here planning on testifying on this item? What I'll do is see if you're in agreement with the terms and conditions, and this could be pretty straightforward. Great.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. The item before you is a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 2 buildable lots located at 722 West Linden Street on 0.34 acres in an R1C residential traditional zone. Both of the proposed lots comply with the dimensional standards of the R1C zone. The property currently contains a single-family house that is planned to be removed. Each lot will be accessed from Leadville Avenue to the west and are proposed to accommodate a duplex, which will require submission of 2 subsequent zoning certificates. Shown here is a landscape plan of the proposed duplexes, which will be subject to further review. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved an associated variance request to deviate from the standard requirement of detached sidewalk along Linden Street because Linden Street is within ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan with a design year of 2028 to 2029 and a construction year that's currently to be determined. This planned improvement along Linden Street consists of 7.5-foot wide attached sidewalk along the northern side of Linden Street, including adjacent to the subject property, meaning any new improvements along the street frontage would be replaced within a few years to accommodate this ACHD project, which does not align with the city's climate goals for reducing solid waste being landfilled. Additionally, agency comments received by ACHD expressed safety concern with the temporary removal of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon to accommodate this work, which is shown in that bottom left-hand corner. For these reasons, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved that associated variance request. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the preliminary plat, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions? All right, I'll ask the applicant. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Madam Mayor, we are.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Just want to confirm, is anybody here to testify on this item? I'm going to close the hearing. I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that SUB 24-25, a request for a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 2 buildable lots located at 722 West Linden Street on approximately 0.34 acres in an R1C zone be approved subject to the recommended conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion? Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, and now, thank you. Now I'll move into CAR 2415. This is on Braemere Road. We've got David Mosier. Hi, David. Presenting for the city. I didn't see Ben. Ben, are you online?
Madam Mayor, the applicant is online.
Okay, great. We don't expect the neighborhood association or anybody from the public to be here. Is that correct? All right, I'll check in with the applicant to see if he's in agreement with terms and conditions after we hear from the city.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council. The applicant is requesting to annex 0.51 acres with a zoning designation of residential suburban with the hillside development overlay and within the wildland urban interface overlay. The site is currently zoned R6 in Ada County. The subject property contains a detached garage associated with a single-family house located on the adjacent parcel to the west and is addressed at 851 East Braemere Road. The subject property is an Ada County enclave, and as such, it is surrounded by the city of Boise on all sides. The site maintains street frontage along Shardy Road, but the property is accessed from Braemere via a shared driveway. This slide shows the current zoning of the surrounding area. No additional development is proposed for the property, and the annexation will allow the property owner to consolidate the 2 parcels containing the garage and the house onto 1 parcel. The subject property is also located in the hillside development overlay and in the wildland urban interface overlay, which is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. The comprehensive plan encourages planning for a coordinated and sustainable pattern of growth within the area of impact, and as well as an efficient expansion of public facilities and infrastructure to serve future growth. And this annexation achieves these goals since the site is surrounded by the city of Boise. The proposed zoning is consistent with the suburban land use designation, and to date, no public agency expressed opposition to the annexation. In summary, the Planning and Zoning Commission finds the annexation complies with all the required findings and recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant available?
Yes, I'm here. Madam Mayor, Ben Semple, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, 83702. We are in agreement with the staff report and conditions of approval.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for staff or the applicant? Just confirm that nobody's here to testify on this.
Madam Mayor, I had one question for David.
Yeah.
David, was this a little easier than your last annexation? Yes. No response necessary. That's okay.
Yes.
All right. Nobody's here for this, so I'm going to close the public hearing and I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of SUB 24-25 to annex approximately 0.51 acres with a zoning district of R1B / HSOWUIO.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'll just say briefly that this seems like kind of a no-brainer to keep with predictability and consistency within the neighborhood, and glad to bring in this little island in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Clerk?
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
And next up, we have, thank you, David. Have a good night. CPA 22-3, CAR 2248, Adler Industrial on Orchard Street. Got Jesse Lyle here to present for this city. I see Will. Say Getty or Goad? Good. Great. Here with as the applicant. We don't expect the neighborhood association. I don't see SD. Is SD online? Nope. Okay. I have one person, Sally Roberts, who's here in favor of this. Oh, shoot. Did you want to testify on something else? Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. I was like, wow, that's really impressive that you came out for this. Okay. Okay. So I won't call you up. Thank you for coming for the other piece. And so we'll start with Jesse and then we'll hear from Will and take it from there.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. The item before you is CPA 22-3 and CAR 22-48. This is a remnant application submitted in 2022 under the Legacy Zoning Code and is being reviewed under those code standards for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation of approximately 26 acres from industrial to commercial, an annexation of 41 acres with the zoning designations of C2DDA for approximately 26 acres and M1 DDA for approximately 14.7 acres, as well as a rezone of approximately 19.6 acres from C1 DDA to M1 DDA and a modification to an existing development agreement, all generally located at 6310 Orchard Street. On June 5th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the request before you today and bulleted on the screen with the addition of a preliminary plat, which has since been withdrawn. The reason for the delay in this project coming before council was to allow the applicant and ACHD to conduct a traffic impact study, which has been accepted. The subject property is located in a largely undeveloped area of the city and abuts the Syringa Valley specific plan area on the west, with planned industrial and development to the east. The entire subject property is approximately 160 acres, and the applicant is proposing to annex approximately 41 acres at the southeast corner of Orchard Street and Innovator Road. The rest of the subject property was previously annexed as part of CAR 21-13, which included a DA. Under that DA, the majority of the 121 acres was zoned M1 DDA, with the remaining 19.6 acres zoned C1 DDA. Currently, the entire 161 acres of the subject property is designated as industrial on the future land use map. The applicant is proposing to convert approximately 26 acres from industrial to commercial, with the remaining 136 acres remaining industrial. This will allow for a commercial zone that would support future development of a more intensive and concentrated commercial use that will serve the proposed industrial park to the east and provide a transition to the commercial area of Syringa Valley to the west. Additionally, the subject property is located within the airport planning area where care should be taken to only allow land uses that do not conflict with airport operations. With the planned build out of Syringa Valley, the extension of Lake Hazel Road, and the Orchard Street alignment and extension, this location is anticipated to be a major commercial and industrial hub. The applicant requests the annexation of approximately 41 acres of the overall subject property, comprised of 26 acres of C2 DDA and 14.7 acres of M1 DDA zoning. Again, nearby uses are predominantly industrial and undeveloped, and Syringa Valley is again located to the west. All the property is surrounded by Boise city limits, and to date, no public agency has expressed opposition to the annexation and have indicated that the area can be properly serviced. Also included is a request to rezone the southwest portion of the project site from C1 DDA to M1 DDA. This rezone would result in the relocation of all commercially zoned property to the northwest corner of the project site, with the rest of the site being zoned M1 DDA. The intent for the overall site is to construct a large industrial park and supporting commercial uses to serve a larger area as well as future employees of the industrial site. The proposed rezone to the northwest corner at D2DDA reserves more land dedicated to light industrial uses overall, while placing commercial uses in a more appropriate consolidated location to support Syringa Valley to the west. The proposal also includes a DA modification to remove reference to a site and phasing plan while preserving the requirement for a fire station location to be dedicated with a future subdivision application. To summarize, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the comprehensive plan amendment, annexation, rezone, and DA modification on June 5th, 2023. However, there were concerns with the preliminary plat as was proposed. Since then, the applicant has withdrawn that plat and ACHD has accepted the submitted traffic impact study. Additionally, the Department of Finance Administration has provided a memo indicating that the proposed annexation can be supported financially by the tax revenue of the resulting development. So in conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I would also like to add that we have representatives from DFA available for questions about any of the financials.
Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear from the applicant. Welcome, Will.
Good evening. My name is Will Gooda. I'm the VP of Development for Adler Industrial. Our address is 8665 West Emerald Street in Boise, Idaho, 83704. First, I wanted to thank Council and Mayor for everything you guys do. I was at the Council hearing a month ago when the flag discussion was had, and I just feel like you guys could not have handled that better. That was a really contentious meeting, very polarizing, and you guys did an incredible job. Made me really proud to live in Boise, and you know, happy to partner together with you guys on a lot of projects. I'd also like to thank Sally for not speaking against my project.
She was here in favor.
Oh, you was in favor? Oh, okay. Well, thanks for showing up in favor. Let's see. At Adler, we really view the city of Boise as a partner and are excited to work together to support Boise's growth. A little background on Adler Industrial. We're the largest industrial developer in the Treasure Valley. We develop, construct, lease, and manage all of our own buildings. You can see the numbers there, but in Boise, we own or manage about 1.1 million square feet of industrial space. We have another 85,000 square feet under construction, and we have about 700 acres of land left to develop. So a lot of runway to go. Most of that land is part of either our partnership with the City of Boise Airport or part of our Pleasant Valley Business Park. Through our airport partnership, we recently finished buildings for Black Market Gelato, for Frito-Lay, and for Whitecap Building Supply. We've also recently built an 88,000 square foot spec building on Fry Street for small industrial bay tenants, and that is leasing up very well. And so we're just starting another small bay industrial building next to it. At Pleasant Valley Business Park, we are also really excited about the activity we have. We've done a lot of infrastructure work to date. We also have sold 10 acres to Quality Electric so they can construct a building, 5 acres to Purdy Enterprises so they can build a building, and have a couple others pending. Hopefully that will lead to additional buildings. We sold 2.5 acres to Idaho Power so they can build a new substation to help service this area. And all the proceeds from these land sales are going to help fund a very significant infrastructure project. To date, we've spent almost $14 million to install water, sewer, and power service to the northern 200 acres of the site. We just started another $3 million worth of roadway and utility projects that will provide roads to what we call the Northeast 40 acres or the visionary subdivision. And we have a long way to go. Like Jesse said, we have an accepted ACHD report that requires a lot of roadway improvements that are currently in design and will be part of the Innovator subdivision. We anticipate the total investment in infrastructure will be over $30 million by the time we are done. As Jesse alluded, there's a bit of history on this project. This application was submitted a while ago. I was going to give you a brief history. We purchased Pleasant Valley Land Holdings, purchased the majority of the property back in 2021. Last year, we purchased the remaining 40 acres of the project, which is the 40 acres we're here talking about tonight. That 40 acres was used as an illegal dumping site. And Since then, so we closed on that part of the property last year. And since then, we've worked closely with DEQ and US Ecology to clean up the hazardous materials and are continuing to coordinate on cleaning up the landscape waste there as well. While the other team has been involved since the beginning, initially Alquist's team was the master developer, leading all the entitlements. So I'm somewhat new to the project. In the fall of last year, we took over as master developer. Huge thanks to Jesse, Crystal, and Kevin helping get me up to speed and find a path forward for this application, which was submitted long ago. As Jesse mentioned in her report, there was a previous subdivision application that we, per staff's recommendation, have withdrawn since it was submitted under the old zoning code, which would have led to confusion. So we are working on an updated subdivision application that will be under the new zoning code. Even though the history of the project is a bit complicated, luckily the application is not. The application does two things. It annexes a 40-acre enclave, and it moves the commercial zone of the business park from the southwest corner to the northwest corner. So it can be located adjacent to the commercial business area for Siringo Valley to provide synergy between the two developments. We are very excited about this area of Boise, which is why we are investing such a large amount in the public infrastructure. And as requested by the city, we are also willing to dedicate the land required for a future fire station, which equates to $1 to $1.5 million worth of land. I do have one request on that. The current DA doesn't list any kind of size at all for that parcel. So I'm hoping that we could at least have a general idea of what the size of that parcel would be. It might have been struck when some of the language was struck from the DA. It could have been part that was struck.
Madam Mayor, I tend to ask staff about that. So we'll get an answer for you by the end of this hearing.
Perfect. Thank you. As we continue to install more infrastructure to the area and see increased demand from businesses, and as the rest of the area continues to develop, I have to put in one plug for the Orchard Street realignment, which is vital for the efficient traffic flow in this area. I understand that there's challenging environmental issues associated with that, but I just had to put in my 2 cents, hoping that that can be prioritized, because with locale and Murillo and with everyone, it's going to be really vital for this area. Yeah, so in summary, really appreciate staff support, P&Z support. We're in agreement with staff conditions and stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor, I intend to bring a motion tonight that would approve this annexation, subject to advance payment of estimated impact fees related to fire service. We appreciate the contribution of the land related to that. We plan to get that squared away to make sure the DA reflects what that agreement is. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on that. I think right now we estimate the impact fees on this annexation and the contiguous property owned by Adler to be about $633,000 at full build out. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to that before you heard it for the first time in a motion.
I appreciate that. I think I have lots of questions, as I often do, and as my wife is often frustrated with me about. Has this been done before? Has something like this been done successfully? We have other projects where we have TIF agreements, which is a similar scenario where we front the money and then we get it back over time. And those are, very complicated agreements and legal agreements. So I guess I'm just trying to understand exactly what we would be stepping into.
Madam Mayor, and you can tell me if your question was deeper than that, but is it fair to say that you would have an expectation to be reimbursed for impact fees should those be above and beyond what's legally required? Is that the basis of that, or is there more to it than that?
I think the biggest part is yes. Would we get is there risk to the upfront funding these fees upfront? Is there risk that we wouldn't be reimbursed the full amount? Is there risk that if we sell the land to someone else, which we already, to be honest, have a lot of, we have land that's not sold, but a lot of discussions have been started on, that it's hard to go back and retrade. So I'm thinking through the mechanics of if.
Madam Mayor, if I could, will interject. If the particular conditions of this included a requirement that the affected property for fire impact fees be contiguous to this, owned by the applicant, which is you, and in the city at the time of this annexation, those are the three conditions that I would attach to that. So that this only applies towards properties that you own, and that you are paying impact fees on. It would run with property that you later sell, but only property that was owned at the time of annexation. And would be, if there are reimbursements to be credited, it would be towards the developments that went first, that owed their impact fees first in the process.
So it would, right now, this DEA agreement is for 160 acres. So it would apply to this 160 acres, right?
So let's go through all these acres again. There's the DA for the 160 acres, which is
Will
the
you
kind of
pull up
L-shaped
will you pull
property.
up the map?
Yeah. Can I pull it up?
Can you go one more?
There we go.
So, Madam Mayor, on this, we have 120 acres, or maybe it's just, in my mind, there's three properties. There's what was annexed under CAR 2113. So
Yep.
this L shape here. That's how many acres?
120.
And then we have another 41 to be annexed. What about that other 40? Is it a different DA?
There's no DA on
There's
it. It
no
was
DA.
already annexed and zoned.
Okay.
And it's, like I showed earlier, it's over half sold. And another portion has LOIs on it.
So I think the estimate that I have from staff is probably on the full 200 acres.
I think if it's from,
Why don't we have the staff come up and answer that question? And the question is that $633,000 that was anticipated as impact fees relate for fire. What is that based on?
Madam Mayor, council member, that is on the 160 acres, not on the full 200.
Okay.
So the 120 plus 41. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I guess I go back to my question. Has this ever been done? Has anything like this been done?
Well, Madam Mayor, and this is something I'll talk about in my rationale for it, but what we're seeing in this part of town is it can be difficult to build infrastructure at the edge of town, because you don't have the sufficient tax base to support it, and sometimes impact fees. We estimate that the impact fees for fire for this development, Locale and Murillo Farms, would get us to about $14 million needed for a fire station. We expect growth to pay for itself. If we can build a fire station in the ballpark of between 2031, 2036, the estimate is that that's going to cost about $25 million. So we're short on that. And the biggest pressure that we have is inflationary pressure. Every year, another 5% goes up. So the sooner we can bring these impact fees in, the sooner we can get fire service to the part of town that you want to develop. And we want that for you there. We want it for the residences there. I've only been on council 2 years, and we did something probably even more aggressive when we approved Murillo Farms. We're trying to avoid something so aggressive here, given that this property pretty much otherwise pencils, because there's not as much service demand when we're not putting residential rooftops in an area. So I would defer to staff if there are other times when we've advanced impact fees. Doesn't look getting nods that we've not done it. I would just say, I think both the city and Adler have benefited from a good relationship over the years, and I would hope that there's a level of trust there that the city would be good stewards of the conditions in this DA to make sure that you're not paying more than what is required by law, but also that we'll be able to collect those fees in a timely manner so that we can get the services that you need out there soon.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity for discussion and questions as I kind of think through how that would work. Would it be okay if I went and made a phone call? I phoned a friend. Is that a
Yeah, we can take 5.
Yeah.
I should say, are there any other questions for Will before?
Madam Mayor, kind of in the weeds on site design here. Obviously that comes a little bit later, but just curious if you have experience with Adler having like CCNRs for properties like this, where you might have multiple different tenants that would require like limited reduced heights along, say, Orchard Street. We've had other commercial property owners in the city that have CCNRs that restrict heights that don't match our zoning requirements. Have you experienced that at all with any of your other sites? Would you foresee that?
we have had, sorry, Council and Mayor, we have had CCNR in projects never to restrict heights along roadways or thoroughfares. In fact, usually we want more dense building, right? But yes, we're familiar with CCNRs, but not anything like that specifically. As part of the innovator subdivision application, we'll get more into the weeds. We're working on an updated site plan now, and I think we can have a more thorough discussion about exactly what we have envisioned. We went back to the drawing board a little bit on the site plan just to take a fresh look at it versus what was presented a few years ago. So I hope within a month or two to have a new application submitted.
Awesome. And the Madam Mayor, just a comment, just to kind of piggyback back off of Council President Nash's comments. I think when we see this area, I think about neighbors that need to move in to visit, or to work at these commercial sites. It's a symbiotic relationship. And so, but in order to be able to get those residential rooftops, to have the fire protection out there.
Yeah.
And so, I see getting that project done quickly, an opportunity for that area to build out and be able to service itself and be the vibrant kind of area that we're in. So I just kind of tack that on to Council President Nash's comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do want to help support that as best as we can. While obviously I have other pressures to navigate as well. So would appreciate that.
Great, let's take as fast a break as you possibly can.
Okay.
So we'll just sit here and wait.
Okay.
Okay, bye. And thank you all for joining us tonight.
Madam Mayor, would this be appropriate time to ask staff about the DA agreement, the development agreement, and the size of the parcel to be donated? I can't imagine we have a figure that we have an estimate and not a number attached to it, but it'd be nice if we put that in the DA.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Nash, I was half listening. Did you say you wanted to know what the size of the fire station parcel?
And if it's in the DA?
It's not in the DA. What we did was leave it a little bit vague. So basically leaving it up to fire to work with the applicant to find a site during the subdivision process. From conversations with the fire department, they said approximately 4 acres, but they don't really know. It kind of depends on the layout of the site and where it would be. within that subdivision.
Madam Mayor, Jesse, do we have any indication? I think if we're going to expect them to donate land and to contribute monetarily to it, that we should have some more definition on like a not to exceed 4 acres, just so that they have some boundaries to that. Do we think fire is going to have a problem with that? And can we condition that here, given that this is attached? Like, do we want the fire station within this annexation or somewhere the whole property? And can we even dictate that in this particular action?
Madam Mayor, council members, there's a couple of complications with that. The way that it reads now is that they have to dedicate land for a fire station with the first phase of the preliminary plat or shortly after. And so they would have to work with the fire department to find a spot or propose a spot in that subdivision where that fire station would be located. I think that if that is something that you'd like us to include, we could work with the applicant and the fire department to try to come with a more accurate number. But that's up to your conditioning today.
Will, while you were on the phone, Council President was talking with Jesse about the anticipated size per your question of lot for the fire station, just so you know.
We
didn't get an answer yet, but that's what happened while you were gone.
Okay.
Yeah, so approximately 4 acres, but we're not quite sure yet.
Is that something that we could define now, or should we just leave it loose?
Madam Mayor, I suggested that it needs more definition, like a not to exceed 4 acres. It's unclear because we don't know if it's going to be on this or the other parcel. What we could do right now, we could direct staff to negotiate the DA with the applicant on a provision not to exceed 4 acres. I think that would be appropriate, don't you, Madam Mayor?
It's hard for me to say the 4 acres thing, to be honest. I mean, Jesse brought up 4 acres. I think it would be appropriate if we're talking about two different things that you wanted more clarity on the size. Council President likely has a motion with regard to impact fees that ties to the DA. That part of this motion be in general direct staff and the applicant to finalize the language. And
that would include the exact.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that we're not doing those two things from the bench.
Okay.
Give them a chance to work through it. Come back with final report back with final DA language, but
Okay.
within some parameters that you've said.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, well, I would just say it's my position, I think council's too, that you have more certainty around that. I don't think we can do it here, but I think it's our clear expectation that you deserve more certainty around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, thank you. That's all we're hoping for. Thanks for the chance for a phone friend as well. I think obviously we really appreciate the partnership with City of Boise, view you guys as a partner in growth. I think that if there is, an assurance that we would be recouped the full 633K by the time the project is fully built out, I think that we could agree to your proposed condition.
Madam Mayor, I would probably not use the word recoup. I would probably say trued up or credited. We anticipate that you'll have obligations of impact fees up to or exceeding that amount, but that if that amount is in excess of impact fees related to fire that are owed, that you would receive a reimbursement on that. And that's my intention, and I'll put that in the language tonight.
Okay. I guess the scenario, if the project didn't generate enough fire impact fees, didn't generate 633K in fire impact fees, would we get 633K worth of reimbursements?
If your impact fees were zero, if your impact fees in this case were like, let's say $300,000, you would be entitled to the difference, which in that case would be $333,000. We do not intend to collect impact fees that exceed any statutory obligations for you to pay impact fees.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, at full build out of the project, if the project builds out with more office versus retail, they have very different fire impact fees associated with that, to the tune of retail is like 250% of office. And I don't know for the commercial zone exactly how that will build out. So there is a scenario where the 160 acres is fully built out and there are not 633K in total fire impact fees. Does that make sense?
Yep. Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
And
Well-
what I'm hearing is that, so, and in that case, if too many were collected, a reimbursement would be made.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I worded it wrong, but a reimbursement would happen at that
Correct.
point. Okay. Then yes,
And I would just get on the record. It's my understanding that that 200,000 square foot of commercial that you had shared with PDS, that finance did the assumption that was not exclusively retail. I don't know the exact percentages they used, but it's my understanding they used a mix of uses there. And maybe it looks like Eric might be willing to speak to that.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, when developing that estimate, there was a mix of retail, office, and industrial. Principally industrial. Approximately 90% of that was assumed to be industrial, which is the lower rate.
Okay. Yes, we can agree to that.
All right, great, thank you. Anything further for the applicant? I'm gonna go ahead. Anything further for staff? And nobody's here for this. All right, I'll close the public hearing.
All right, Madam Mayor, I have a lengthy motion and a lengthier commentary on the motion. I move approval of CPA 22-3 and CAR 22-48, a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation of approximately 26 acres from industrial to commercial to annex approximately 41 acres with a zoning designation of C-2D-DA for approximately 26 acres and M-ID/DA for approximately 14.7 acres to rezone approximately 19.6 acres from C1D/DA to M1D/DA and to modify an existing development agreement, all located generally at 6310 Orchard Street. Approval of the annexation is expressly contingent upon an upfront payment of $633,000 in order to mitigate the impact to city services. An annexation ordinance shall not be brought forward for first reading until this condition has been fulfilled. This amount shall be deemed a prepayment of estimated fire impact fees. I'd wait a second. What's that?
The fire property.
Oh, and I would direct staff to work with the applicant on an amendment to the DA that would include more specifics related to the contribution of the property for the fire station.
Second.
We have a motion, a second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I would just want to note some things related to this prepayment consistent with the discussion that we had with the applicant. This is 633,000 is an estimated fire impact fees for this property. This amount will ultimately be trued up as development occurs. This means we will track impact fee obligations parcel by parcel over time for the subject property and any contiguous parcels related to these two developments that are within the city of Boise limits at the time of annexation and owned by the applicant at the time of annexation. The actual impact fees owed for those parcels will be compared against the prepaid amount to ensure the total fees collected reflect the actual obligations of the development activity. We recognize that the area may develop in phases under multiple future owners, which underscores the need for accurate tracking of impact fee assessments and credits. It's not our intention to apply this prepayment credit to parcels not owned by the applicant at the time of annexation, parcels not owned by the applicant that are not contiguous to the annexed property, and parcels that may be annexed in the future, even if they're contiguous, or apply to parcels that are later acquired by the applicant after the time of annexation. Impact fees will be credited in the order they are assessed and only for developments that meet the above criteria. Once the $633,000 credit is fully exhausted, all future development on the site and surrounding area will pay impact fees as normal. State law prohibits the city from waiving or forgiving impact fees, nor does it allow over collection. While staff considers this a conservative estimate of total fees, and we do not anticipate needing to issue a refund, any reconciliation will only occur after full ballot of the subject property and eligible contiguous parcels as defined. So just trying to provide a little intent and context to the conversation that we just had to make sure that we can do this in an efficient and equitable manner for the applicant in that part of town so that we can get a fire station there sooner than later. And we appreciate the applicant's willingness to be a good partner on getting that fire station there, both with the property contribution and with this advance payment of the impact fees.
Madam Mayor, I want to thank Council President Nash for his work on this motion. As we experience new pressures in rising costs and our restrictions to encourage development to pay for itself from state authorities or otherwise, we have to get more and more creative on how we can balance these needs. And I appreciate this additional, I appreciate the applicant's willingness to kind of go through this with us. It's a challenging time, and I would not have supported this if there wasn't a way to offset some of these costs instead of burdening them with our current residents. As we annex properties, we have to figure out a way to balance those costs. So I appreciate the land donation very much, and appreciate the willingness to front those impact fees. I don't think that we're asking for more than would be required, but just asking for it in a different time. And I appreciate the creativity to help us achieve what we need to see not just the homes as Councilman Morales mentioned, but I mean, your property also needs fire service, and that's not going to happen without a fire station. And it's very expensive. So I appreciate the creativity that went into this and your partnership on this. Thank you so much, Will.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. I too just want to really say thanks to President Nash. This is an area of town we've struggled with as we're looking for adoption of houses, looking to develop the area with industrial and commercial. We do need fire protection out in this area, and we need to, and the faster that we can collect those impact fees with a creative motion, creative ideas, the sooner we'll be able to make that happen. That'll help reduce all of our costs and be able to provide that protection for everyone who lives in the area, everyone who does business out in the area. I think going forward, we're going to need to continue to work to come up with other creative ideas to ensure that we can make this happen. And I'm really grateful for Alder for being agreeable to this tonight. Thank you.
All right, clerk.
Corliss,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.